Odearman 22 hours, March 28, 1942. Loire Estuary, German-occupied France. Lieutenant Commander Stephen Holden Beatty stands on the bridge of HMS Campbeltown, his hands gripping the cold steel railing as searchlights pierce the darkness like accusing fingers. The narrow estuary waters reflect the beams, turning the Loire into a river of liquid silver. Behind him, 18 motor launches trail in formation, their mahogany hulls barely visible against the black Atlantic night. The silence shatters. A German naval signal light blinks from the northern shore, demanding identification. Beatty's executive officer glances at him, waiting. The destroyer's deck beneath their feet vibrates with restrained power. 19 knots, her engines capable of more, held back only by the shallow mud banks that lurk beneath the surface like sleeping predators. You can smell it now. The salt air mixing with diesel fumes, the metallic tang of adrenaline sweating from 257 commandos crouched behind improvised armor plating on the open deck. Their weapons, Thompson submachine guns, Bren guns, grenades, rest against their chests, cold and ready. On the bridge, someone sends the coded response, German signals captured during the Volgsoy raid months earlier. The searchlights hold steady, unwavering. The reply buys them precious seconds, maybe a minute. Every officer aboard knows this is the most dangerous moment. 8 minutes from the target, fully illuminated, nowhere to hide. Shore batteries open fire. The first shells scream overhead, geysers of water erupting 50 yards to starboard. Then, closer. The German 280th Naval Artillery Battalion has awakened. From concrete emplacements atop the submarine pens, 43 anti-aircraft guns rotate downward, transforming from sky watchers to ship killers. 20mm rounds rake across Campbeltown superstructure with a sound like steel rain on tin roofs. Beatty doesn't flinch. "Lower the German ensign," he orders, his voice steady as granite. "Raise the white ensign." The British naval flag unfurls in the smoke and searchlight glare, a declaration of intent. The German gunners respond with fury. Tracer fire arcs across the water in streams of red and green, beautiful and lethal. One commando, mesmerized by the light show, opens his mouth to speak. A 20mm round removes the back of his skull before the words form. The helmsman jerks, struck in the chest, and collapses across the wheel. Blood spreads across the deck in dark pools. His replacement steps over the body, grabs the wheel with shaking hands. 30 seconds later, he too falls, wounded. A third man takes position without being asked. Campbeltown increases speed, her bow cutting through the Loire at 19 knots now, 20. The entire estuary has become a killing field. To port, motor launch ML-192 erupts in flames, her fuel tanks ignited by shore fire. Commandos leap into the freezing water. Most do not surface. To starboard, ML-262 is taking fire at point-blank range, her mahogany hull splintering like kindling. The German guard ship, Speerbrecher, looms ahead in the darkness, her guns blazing. Every vessel in the British flotilla turns their weapons on her simultaneously. Oerlikon cannons, Lewis guns, everything. The concentrated fire overwhelms the German ship. Her guns fall silent. She begins to drift. Through the smoke and chaos, the objective appears. The massive Normandie dry dock gates, rising 160 feet into the French night. Built in 1932 to service the great ocean liner SS Normandie, the largest dry dock in the world, the only facility on the Atlantic coast capable of servicing Germany's greatest battleships. Beatty can see the anti-torpedo netting strung across the entrance. "All ahead, full!" he commands. Campbeltown surges forward, her bow striking the netting, tearing through. Steel cables snap with sounds like gunshots. The dock gate rushes closer, impossibly large, impossibly solid. 01:34 hours. Impact. The collision drives Campbeltown's bow 33 feet onto the caisson, crushing 36 feet of her forward hull. The destroyer shudders, metal screaming against concrete. Men on deck are thrown forward, some over the railings into the dock. The ship settles, wedged firmly atop the gate exactly where she needs to be. And deep in her bow, encased in concrete and steel, 4.5 tons of depth charges begin their countdown. The raid has begun. The shadow of Tirpitz, 3 months earlier. London, England, January 1942. In the war rooms beneath Whitehall, officers from Combined Operations Headquarters study photographs spread across a mahogany table. The images show a monster. Tirpitz, sister ship to the recently sunk Bismarck. 52,600 tons of armoured steel, 8 15-inch guns capable of obliterating any ship afloat. She sits in a Norwegian fjord near Trondheim, waiting. The threat is existential. Atlantic convoys supplying Britain and Russia from America move in constant fear. If Tirpitz breaks out into the Atlantic shipping lanes, the war effort could collapse. The Royal Navy lacks vessels that can both catch her and fight her. She can outgun anything that can outrun her and outrun anything that can outgun her. But Tirpitz has an Achilles heel. Naval Intelligence Division analysts have identified it. If damaged, even moderately, Tirpitz would require a dry dock for repairs. In the entire Atlantic, only one facility can accommodate a ship her size: the Normandie dry dock at Nazaire, German-occupied France. The memory of Bismarck haunts the analysis. On May 24, 1941, during the Battle of the Denmark Strait, Bismarck and Prince Eugen encountered HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales. Hood, pride of the Royal Navy, exploded and sank, taking 415 men with her. Prince of Wales retreated, damaged. Bismarck, also damaged, made for St. Nazaire. The British hunted her across the Atlantic, throwing everything available into the pursuit. Torpedo bombers, battleships, destroyers, a desperate chase that ended with Bismarck's destruction before she reached France. The lesson is clear. Deny Tirpitz her sanctuary, and she becomes a caged tiger. Prime Minister Winston Churchill himself has demanded action. The directive is simple: destroy the dry dock at St. Nazaire. Make it impossible for Tirpitz to venture into the Atlantic. Combined Operations examines options. An RAF bombing raid. The planners shake their heads. St. Nazaire sits in the heart of a French town, 50,000 civilians living among the docks and submarine pens. The technology doesn't exist for precision bombing from altitude. The civilian casualties would be catastrophic, and Churchill has explicitly forbidden such strikes. Could the Special Operations Executive infiltrate agents? SOE representatives calculate the explosive requirements. Tons of demolitions. Too many agents, too conspicuous, too likely to fail. A naval bombardment. St. Nazaire lies 8 kilometers up the Loire estuary. The dredged shipping channel is heavily defended with coastal batteries and searchlights. Any warship large enough to damage the dock would be detected and destroyed long before coming within range. The planners sit in silence, contemplating failure. Then someone suggests the impossible. What if a ship, lightened enough to pass over the shallow mudbanks at high tide, disguised to avoid detection, packed with explosives, rammed the dock gates at full speed? Commandos aboard could destroy the pumping machinery, while the ship's explosives, on a delayed fuse, obliterated the gate itself. The Admiralty's initial response is swift and negative. Lose a destroyer for a dock? Unacceptable. Britain's naval resources are stretched to breaking. Every ship matters, but combined operations persists. March 1942 will bring an unusually high spring tide. The water level would allow a destroyer, if lightened sufficiently, to cross the sandbanks in the estuary, bypassing the heavily defended Charpentier Channel entirely, a night approach under darkness, a surprise attack. Get in, destroy the target, get out. The planners study tidal charts, German defensive positions, intelligence reports. French resistance contacts provide detailed plans of the dock layout. Pre-war technical journals offer specifications. Enigma decrypts reveal German recognition signals. The plan crystallizes: one destroyer, modified and expendable, 18 motor launches to transport additional commandos and provide covering fire, a diversionary RAF bombing raid to draw attention skyward, a submarine to act as a navigation beacon in the Atlantic darkness. The target list expands beyond the dock gate: pump houses controlling water levels, winding houses operating the internal gates, anti-aircraft positions, bridges, locks. Destroy it all. Render St. Nazaire useless for years. On March 3, 1942, approval arrives. Operation Chariot is authorized. Now they need a ship willing to die. An audacious plan, Devonport Dockyard, England, March 1942. HMS Campbeltown enters dry dock, an aging destroyer showing every year of her 2 decades of service. She was USS Buchanan once, a Wickes-class destroyer launched in January 1919 by the United States Navy. In September 1940, as part of the Destroyers for Bases agreement between Britain and America, she crossed the Atlantic to join the Royal Navy's fleet. Now she faces her final mission. Dockyard workers swarm over her hull like ants on a carcass. They have 10 days to transform her into a weapon. The modifications are radical. Every unnecessary weight must go. Internal compartments are stripped out, bulkheads removed. Her 3 4-inch deck guns vanish, replaced by a single 12-pounder quick-firing gun forward. Torpedoes, depth charge racks, ammunition stores, all removed. The goal is draft reduction. Campbeltown must ride high enough to clear the mudbanks. Naval architects calculate minimum depths, maximum speeds, tidal windows. The margins for error are measured in inches. But she also needs to survive long enough to reach the target. 8 20mm Oerlikon cannons are mounted on raised platforms above deck level, giving gunners clear fields of fire. The bridge and wheelhouse receive additional armor plating, thick enough to stop small arms fire, thin enough not to sink the ship before she reaches France. 2 rows of armor run along the hull sides, creating a protected corridor for the commandos who will ride exposed on the open deck. The most dramatic modification comes next. Campbeltown has 4 funnels. Workers cut away 2, leaving only the forward pair. These remaining stacks are then cut at an angle, sloped backward. The effect is immediate. From a distance, in darkness, she resembles a German Moer-class torpedo boat. The deception might buy them critical minutes. In a sealed compartment deep within the ship's bow, specialists from the Special Operations Executive install the heart of the operation: 4.5 tons of Mark 7 depth charges, packed carefully into a steel and concrete housing. The explosive is positioned directly behind where the bow will strike the dock gate, ensuring maximum destructive effect. Lieutenant Nigel Tirpitz, Royal Navy, oversees the installation personally. His responsibility is absolute. Design the charge, set the fuse, ensure detonation. The timing must be precise. Explode too early, and the commandos die with the dock. Too late, and the Germans might discover and disarm it. Tirpitz opts for pencil fuses, 3 of them, providing redundancy. Acid slowly eats through wire, eventually triggering detonation. The delay is calculated for 8 hours after ramming. By then, if all goes well, every raider will be miles out at sea, racing back to England. As backup, the crew will open Campbeltown's seacocks before abandoning ship. If the Germans attempt to tow her away, she'll sink in the estuary, blocking the channel. Not the primary objective, but better than capture. While Campbeltown undergoes transformation, the motor launches prepare. 12 Fairmile B motor launches from the 20th and 28th flotillas receive modifications. Their wooden mahogany hulls, built for speed rather than protection, gain 2 Oerlikon 20mm cannons, 1 forward, 1 aft, supplementing their twin 303 Lewis guns. At the last minute, 4 additional launches from the 7th flotilla join the operation. These carry torpedoes, 2 per boat, tasked with engaging German shipping in the estuary. Every launch receives an auxiliary fuel tank, 500 imperial gallons, welded to the upper deck. The additional range is essential for the round trip. But the tanks are also death traps, exposed, vulnerable, filled with flammable petrol. A single hit could turn a launch into an inferno. The naval contingent grows. Motor gun boat 314, a Fairmile C-type, becomes the headquarters vessel. Commander Robert Edward Dudley Ryder, overall naval commander, will direct operations from her deck. Motor torpedo boat 74, a 70-foot Vosper with temperamental engines, joins despite mechanical concerns. Her primary target? If the outer dock gates stand open, torpedo the inner gates. If closed, strike the gates at the old basin entrance. 2 Hunt-class destroyers, HMS Tyndale and HMS Atherstone, will escort the flotilla across the channel and provide covering force. The submarine HMS Sturgeon receives orders to position herself off the Loire estuary and activate a navigation beacon to guide the raiders in. The human element requires equal preparation. Lieutenant Colonel Augustus Charles Newman, commanding officer of No. 2 Commando, receives overall command of the military forces. His unit will provide the largest contingent, 173 men. Additional commandos from other units bring the total to 257. Veterans from Nazaire 1, 3, 4, 5, 9 and 12 commandos, each bringing specialized skills. Newman divides his force into 3 groups. Group 1, under Captain Hodgson, will travel in 6 motor launches. Their objectives? Secure the Old Mole jetty, the planned evacuation point, eliminate anti-aircraft positions around the southern quays, then push into the old town to destroy the power station, bridges and locks. Group 2, commanded by Captain Byrne, also in 6 launches, targets the old entrance to the basin. They must destroy anti-aircraft guns, German headquarters, locks and bridges, then hold against counterattacks from the submarine base. Group 3, led by Major William Bill Copland, also Newman's second in command, rides aboard Campbeltown herself. Their mission is most critical. Secure the immediate dock area, destroy the pump houses and winding machinery, eliminate underground fuel tanks. Each group subdivides into assault, demolition and protection teams. Assault teams carry Thompson's submachine guns, Bren guns, grenades and mortars, firepower to clear resistance. Demolition teams pack rucksacks with 50 to 90 pounds of explosives and fuses, armed only with Colt 45 sidearms for self-defense. Protection teams provide security while demolitions work, equipped with automatic weapons. The commandos train relentlessly. In Southampton, they practice on a pump house nearly identical to those at St. Nazaire. They rehearse in darkness, then blindfolded, learning to navigate by touch and memory alone. Speed is everything. Get in, plant charges, get out. Minutes, not hours. Captain Bill Pritchard, Royal Engineers, proves invaluable. As an apprentice, with Great Western Railway dockyards before the war, and having studied French ports during the 1940 evacuation, he knows St. Nazaire intimately. He identifies critical machinery, structural weaknesses, optimal placement for charges. One Scottish captain, Donald William Roy, insists his men will fight in regimental kilts. Newman approves. Tradition matters even, especially when facing death. For identification in darkness, the raiders paint equipment straps with reflective white paint and carry blue flashlights. The password is established. Challenge, War Weapons Week. Response, Weymouth. The choice is deliberate. Germans struggle with the W pronunciation. By March 26, 1942, preparations are complete. Campbeltown floats at Falmouth Harbour, her disguised profile unrecognizable from her former self. The motor launches cluster nearby, crews performing final checks. The commandos board, faces grim, weapons ready. Every man knows the odds. Many will not return. At 14 hours, the flotilla departs Falmouth. Destination, St. Nazaire, France. Distance, 400 miles. Time to target, approximately 60 hours. The greatest raid of all has begun its journey. The floating bomb mid-Atlantic, March 27, 1942. Evening. The convoy moves through grey seas in formation, 3 columns with destroyers Atherstone and Tynedale in the centre. To port and starboard, the motor launches rise and fall with the swells, white wakes trailing behind them like chalk lines on slate. The MTB and MGB, unable to make the journey under their own power, ride under tow, their crews resting while they can. Below deck on Campbeltown, Lieutenant Nigel Tirpitz descends into the forward compartment where the explosives wait. The space is cramped, illuminated by a single electric bulb that swings with the ship's motion, casting shadows that dance across the concrete housing. Inside that casing, behind steel and cement, sit 4.5 tons of death. Tirpitz carries 3 pencil fuses. Each is a marvel of simplicity, a glass vial of acid suspended above a tensioned wire. When the glass breaks, acid drips onto the wire, slowly corroding it until it snaps, releasing the striker, firing the detonator. The erosion rate determines the delay, in this case, 8 hours. He works methodically, inserting each fuse into its designated position. 3 separate initiation points provide redundancy. If one fails, the others will still function. His hands are steady, his focus absolute. One mistake, one miscalculation, and 80 men currently on deck will die instantly when Campbeltown vaporizes. The fuses installed, Tirpitz climbs back topside. The work is done. Now they wait. On deck, commandos huddle behind the armored plating, trying to find shelter from the Atlantic wind. The temperature hovers just above freezing. Sea spray coats everything in a film of salt. Men check weapons for the 100th time, clean and re-clean mechanisms that are already spotless. It's something to do, a way to keep hands busy and minds from dwelling on what waits ahead. Private Arthur Ashcroft of 5 Troop sits with his back against the cold steel, rifle across his knees. He's 23 years old, from Manchester. This is his first major operation. Around him, veterans talk in low voices, sharing cigarettes, telling jokes that aren't funny but get laughs anyway. It's the camaraderie of men who know they might be dead in 24 hours. Near the bow, Captain Donald Roy checks his kit one final time. The Scotsman's kilt draws glances from the English commandos, but no one comments. Roy is known as the Laird, a nickname earned through combat effectiveness rather than noble birth. His assault team has the most dangerous initial objective: scale the pumphouse walls, eliminate the rooftop gun emplacements, secure the bridge that provides the only route out of the dock area. If Roy fails, the entire demolition operation collapses. He seems unconcerned. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Beatty studies charts of the Loire estuary by red light, preserving his night vision. The approach to St. Nazaire is a navigator's nightmare. Shifting sandbanks, shallow depths, a narrow, deep-water channel studded with coastal guns and searchlights. The British plan ignores the safe route entirely. Instead, they'll cross the mudbanks. The spring tide, unusually high this March, provides barely enough depth if the calculations are correct, if the intelligence about the sandbars is accurate, if Campbeltown's draft modifications provide sufficient clearance, if the margin for error is measured in inches. At 17 hours, the convoy encounters 2 French fishing trawlers. Commander Ryder, watching from MGB 314, makes a hard decision. If the trawlers carry German observers, and intelligence suggests they often do, the entire operation is compromised. He signals, intercept and search. The trawler crews are removed, questioned. They claim to be simple fishermen. Perhaps they are, perhaps not. Ryder can't take the risk. Both trawlers are sunk, the crews taken aboard the British vessels as temporary prisoners. It's a small mercy. They'll survive the war, but the delay costs precious minutes. 2 hours later, a signal arrives from Commander-in-Chief Plymouth. 5 German torpedo boats are operating in the area. The news sends a ripple of tension through the flotilla. If those boats find the convoy, the motor launches won't stand a chance. The entire raid could end before it begins. Ryder alters course slightly, trying to avoid the reported position while maintaining schedule. Another signal follows. Two additional Hunt-class destroyers, HMS Cleveland and HMS Brocklesby, are being dispatched at full speed to provide cover for the return journey. Small comfort. First, they have to survive the attack itself. At 21 hours, the convoy reaches the staging point, 65 nautical miles off St. Nazaire. The escorting destroyers Atherstone and Tyndale drop back, taking up patrol positions. They'll wait here for the raiders' return, ready to provide anti-aircraft cover and engage any pursuing German vessels. The attack flotilla forms up. MGB 314 and two torpedo-armed motor launches take the lead. Behind them, Campbeltown assumes center position, her falsified German profile visible in the darkness. The remaining motor launches form two columns, flanking the destroyer, port and starboard. MTB 74 brings up the rear, struggling with her temperamental engines. At 22 hours, HMS Sturgeon activates her beacon. The submarine sits on the surface, invisible in the darkness, transmitting a directional radio signal out to sea. The flotilla's radio operator picks up the transmission, calculates bearing. They adjust course, pointing the bow directly toward the Loire estuary. Campbeltown raises the German naval ensign. From a distance in darkness, she could pass for a Meaux-class torpedo boat returning from patrol. It's a thin deception, but it might buy them a few precious minutes. First casualty, ML341 develops engine trouble and falls behind. Her commander signals that repairs are impossible. Rather than compromise the mission, he orders the launch abandoned. The crew transfers to other vessels, and ML341 is scuttled. The flotilla is now down to 17 motor launches. At 23:30 hours, RAF bombers appear overhead. 35 Whitleys and 27 Wellingtons from 5 squadrons begin their diversionary raid on St. Nazaire. The plan calls for them to remain over the port for 60 minutes, drawing German attention skyward while the naval force approaches from the sea. But the weather doesn't cooperate. Full cloud cover blankets St. Nazaire. Churchill's orders are explicit. Bomb only clearly identified military targets. Fly above 6,000 feet. Drop one bomb at a time. The combination is paralyzing. Through the clouds, pilots can identify nothing. Only 4 aircraft managed to bomb targets in St. Nazaire itself, 6 more bomb secondary targets nearby. The diversionary raid, crucial to the plan's success, largely fails. On the ground, Captain zur See Karl Konrad Mecker, commander of the 22nd Naval Flak Brigade, watches the bombers circle overhead, dropping single bombs at random. The unusual behavior concerns him. At midnight, he issues a warning, possible parachute landing in progress. At 01:00, he follows with a second order. All guns cease fire, all searchlights extinguished. If the British are using the lights and gun flashes to navigate, he won't help them. The darkness becomes complete. Every German defensive position goes on high alert. Harbor defense companies evacuate air raid shelters, man weapons, scan the darkness. An estuary lookout boat reports suspicious activity at sea. Mecker's instincts are correct. Something is coming. At 00:30 hours on March 28th, the British flotilla crosses into the Loire estuary. Campbeltown scrapes bottom once, twice, sandbanks clawing at her keel. Each time she pulls free, momentum carrying her forward. The calculations were correct, barely. They penetrate deeper into the estuary, the darkness pressing close. To port and starboard, the French coastline is invisible, but everyone knows the German gun batteries are there, waiting, 8 minutes from the target. Tirpitz, standing near the bow, feels the explosive charge beneath his feet. In less than 10 minutes, that bow will cease to exist, crushed against the Normandie dock gates. 8 hours after that, those 4.5 tons of Mark 7 depth charges will detonate, erasing the dock from existence if the fuses work. If the Germans don't discover the charge, if the pencil fuse's acid corrodes the wire at the calculated rate. Too many ifs, but it's too late to reconsider now. At Doe 122, searchlights blazed to life, illuminating the entire flotilla. The moment of truth has arrived. The men who would dare, 2 weeks earlier, Falmouth, England, March 14, 1942, Lieutenant Colonel Augustus Charles Newman stands before 257 assembled commandos in a sealed briefing room. Behind him, a large map of St. Nazaire covers the wall, marked with colored pins, indicating German defensive positions, target structures, approach routes. The men sit in silence, weapons stacked nearby, faces attentive. "Gentlemen," Newman begins, his voice carrying the flat certainty of a man who expects to be obeyed, "we're going to destroy the Normandie dry dock." For the next 2 hours, he outlines the plan in meticulous detail. The approach up the Loire, the ramming of the dock gates, the demolition objectives, the evacuation via motor launches, the 400-mile return journey across hostile waters. He doesn't minimize the risks. Of the 612 men who will participate in Operation Chariot, commandos and naval personnel combined, many will not return. The Germans have 5,000 troops in the immediate St. Nazaire area, backed by 28 coastal artillery pieces ranging from 75mm to 280mm railway guns, plus 43 anti-aircraft weapons with dual ground attack capability. The raiders will be outnumbered 20 to 1. When Newman finishes, he asks if anyone wants to withdraw. No man raises his hand. Newman is 38 years old, a civil engineer in peacetime, commissioned into the Territorial Army before the war. He joined No. 2 Commando in its formation, rising through ranks on merit rather than connections. His men respect him, not for aristocratic bearing or military pedigree, but for competence and willingness to share their risks. He'll prove that willingness at St. Nazaire. Though Newman could remain on MGB 314 in a command role, directing operations from relative safety, he chooses to land with the first assault wave. When his men go ashore, he goes ashore. Commander Robert Edward Dudley Ryder, 34, commands the naval forces. A career Royal Navy officer, Ryder distinguished himself in the Norwegian campaign and various commando support operations. His reputation is sterling. Calm under fire, innovative in tactics, respected by subordinates and superiors alike. For Operation Chariot, Ryder's responsibilities are immense. He must coordinate the movements of 18 vessels through hostile waters, maintain timing precision measured in minutes, adapt to German countermeasures in real time, and ensure the commandos reach their objectives while preserving enough boats to evacuate them afterward. It's a task that requires equal parts seamanship, tactical brilliance, and cold courage. Lieutenant Commander Stephen Holden Beatty, 34, will command HMS Campbeltown. The responsibility resting on his shoulders is unique. Ram a destroyer into a concrete dock gate at full speed, ensuring the bow penetrates far enough to prevent German removal before detonation, survive the impact, evacuate his crew, then watch his ship explode from a distance. Beatty joined the Royal Navy in 1924, serving in various capacities through peacetime and war. He's known for exceptional ship-handling skills and unflappable composure. He'll need both at St. Nazaire. Navigating the Loire estuary at night, under fire, across unmapped sandbanks, with a jury-rigged destroyer, the margin between success and disaster is razor-thin. Below Beatty's command, Lieutenant Nigel Tirpitz serves as Campbeltown's torpedo officer, but his real role is more sinister, bomb maker. Tirpitz designed the explosive charge hidden in the bow, calculated fuse timings, installed detonators. When Campbeltown enters the Loire, Tirpitz will descend into the forward compartment one final time and activate the fuses. After that, the clock starts. 8 hours until detonation, regardless of whether the crew escapes. Major William "Bill" Copland, Newman's second-in-command, leads Group 3 aboard Campbeltown. His demolition teams target the most critical infrastructure, the pump houses controlling water levels in the dry dock, the winding machinery operating the gates. Without these systems, even if the Germans somehow repair the damaged caisson, the dock remains useless. Copland is a veteran of multiple operations, decorated for valor, known for calm decision-making under extreme stress. He'll need that composure. When the evacuation fails and Newman considers surrender, it's Copland who responds without hesitation. Certainly not Colonel. We'll fight our way out. Captain Donald William Roy, the Laird, commands the first assault team off Campbeltown. His 14-man unit, fighting in kilts per Scottish tradition, must eliminate 2 gun emplacements atop the pump house roof and secure a bridge, all within minutes, all while exposed to concentrated German fire. Roy's reputation for aggressive combat is about to be tested definitively. Lieutenant Stuart Chant leads one of the demolition teams targeting the main pump house. He and his men trained for weeks on an identical structure in Southampton, learning to navigate 3 floors in complete darkness, place 40 pounds of explosives on precise targets, and escape within minutes. By the time training concluded, they could complete the mission blindfolded. Chant will be wounded 3 times during the raid, shrapnel to knee, arm, and both hands, but will continue leading his team, plant all charges, set fuses, and evacuate just before the pump house explodes into rubble. Sergeant Thomas Frank Durrant, 25 No. 1 Commando, assigned to ML 306. Durrant's role is simple: man the aft Lewis machine gun, provide covering fire during approach and withdrawal. What makes him remarkable is what he'll do when that role becomes a death sentence. Wounded repeatedly, facing a German torpedo boat at point-blank range, Durrant will continue firing until the ML is boarded and he collapses from blood loss. The German commander who captures him will personally recommend Durrant for the Victoria Cross. An enemy officer acknowledging enemy valor, able seaman William Alfred Savage, Royal Navy, assigned to MGB 314's forward 2-pounder gun. Savage's gun position is completely exposed, no armor, no protection. During the withdrawal from St. Nazaire, German shore batteries and searchlights will concentrate fire on the MGB. Savage will remain at his weapon, returning fire, silencing one battery temporarily, continuing until multiple wounds kill him at his post. His posthumous Victoria Cross citation will honor not just him, but all the unnamed sailors who fought from exposed positions during Operation Chariot. These are the leaders, the decorated, the ones whose names history remembers. But Operation Chariot's success depends equally on hundreds whose names appear only in unit rosters and casualty lists. Lance Corporal Harold Roberts, 5 Troop, aboard Campbeltown. Private George Salisbury, 1 Troop, aboard ML 177. Lance Corporal Bert Shipton from Peckham, aboard ML 457. Petty Officer Motor Mechanic Lawrence Ferguson Wallace, known as Sam, aboard ML 268. The list continues, 612 names long. Each man has a story. Families waiting in Britain, jobs abandoned for military service, dreams of returning home. By March 28, 1942, 169 of those stories will end in the Loire estuary or the streets of Saint-Nazaire. Another 215 will end in German prisoner-of-war camps. But on March 14th, as Newman concludes his briefing and dismisses the men to their preparations, those futures remain unwritten. What exists now is training, duty, and the peculiar clarity that comes from knowing you're about to attempt something extraordinary. Over the following weeks, the commandos train with obsessive intensity. They practice disembarking from mock-ups of Campbeltown's deck. They rehearse demolition procedures until the movements become muscle memory. They study blueprints and photographs of Saint-Nazaire until they can navigate the dock area with eyes closed. Physical conditioning intensifies. Speed marches with full kit, weapons drills, hand-to-hand combat, street fighting tactics. Everything they might need to survive a German-occupied French port for 2 hours. On March 26th, as the flotilla prepares to depart Falmouth, the men conduct final weapons checks. Thompson submachine guns, 30-round box magazines, Bren guns, bipods attached, Mills bombs, fragmentation grenades clipped to webbing. Demolition teams secure their rucksacks, 50 to 90 pounds of explosives, fuses, and detonators. Captain Bill Pritchard, Royal Engineers, makes a final inspection of the demolition charges. Pritchard's pre-war experience in dockyards makes him invaluable. He knows exactly where to place explosives for maximum structural damage. His calculations will prove accurate. Every target his teams attack will be completely destroyed. At 14 hours, the commandos board. They distribute themselves across Campbeltown and the motor launches according to group assignments. On Campbeltown's deck, 80 men crouch behind armored plating, weapons ready, faces streaked with camouflage paint. The flotilla departs Falmouth Harbour, heading southwest into the Atlantic. Newman stands on MGB 314's deck, watching the English coast recede. In approximately 36 hours, they'll either be dead, captured, or returning as heroes. There's no middle ground, no partial success. Either the dock is destroyed, or it isn't. He thinks about his men, good men, brave men, men who volunteered for an operation they know is borderline suicidal. He's never been prouder, and he's never carried a heavier weight of responsibility. On Campbeltown's bridge, Beatty checks the compass, heading one final time. The calculations are precise, the planning meticulous. Now it comes down to execution, seamanship, and luck. Behind him, hidden in the bow, 4.5 tons of explosives wait patiently. Section 6. Crossing the Channel Mid-Atlantic, March 27th, 1942, 03 hours. The convoy moves through darkness under a moonless sky. The Atlantic swells roll beneath the flotilla in long, lazy undulations. On the motor launches, sailors fight constant nausea as the small boats rise and fall, an endless rhythm that turns stomachs and frays nerves. On Campbeltown, conditions are marginally better. The destroyer's greater mass dampens the worst of the motion, but spray from the bow still reaches midships, coating everything in cold salt water. The commandos huddle in whatever shelter they can find, trying to rest, knowing sleep is impossible. Lieutenant Colonel Newman makes rounds, moving among the men, offering encouragement. A pat on the shoulder here, a quiet word there. Small gestures, but they matter. The men need to see their commander confident, unworried. Even if it's theatre, it helps. Private Arthur Ashcroft checks his rifle again. Strip, clean, reassemble. He's performed the action so many times that his hands move independently of conscious thought. Around him, other commandos do the same. Weapons maintenance becomes meditation, a way to occupy hands and minds. Sergeant Don Randall, part of Captain Roy's assault team, sits with his back against the armored plating, eyes closed. He's not sleeping. Sleeping is impossible, but conserving energy. In approximately 24 hours, he and Roy will be scaling the pump house walls under fire, using grenades to clear German gun positions. Rest now, fight later. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Beatty studies weather reports. The forecast is mixed. Cloud cover over St. Nazaire, good for concealing the approach, bad for the RAF diversionary bombing. The spring tide is precisely as calculated, high enough to cross the sandbanks, but only just. Wind is moderate, westerly. Sea state manageable. Everything depends on timing. The flotilla must arrive at the Loire estuary at exactly the right moment. Too early, and the tide won't provide sufficient depth to cross the banks. Too late, and they'll be attempting the ramming run in dawn light, fully visible to every German gun position. Beatty calculates and recalculates, checking speed, distance, course. The mathematics are unforgiving. Below deck on Campbeltown, Lieutenant Nigel Tirpitz tries to rest in his cramped cabin. The explosive charge is complete, installed, ready. Soon he'll activate the fuses, beginning the countdown to detonation. After that, his role becomes waiting. Waiting to ram, waiting to evacuate, waiting for the explosion. He wonders if the acid will corrode the wire at the calculated rate. Laboratory tests proved the concept, but laboratories aren't combat zones. Temperature, humidity, vibration, all could affect timing. The charge might detonate early, or late, or not at all. He pushes the thoughts aside. The plan is sound. The fuses are reliable. It will work. At 10 hours, dawn breaks. The flotilla continues southwest, maintaining formation. To anyone watching from a distance, a German reconnaissance plane, a U-boat periscope, they'd appear to be a standard coastal convoy, destroyers escorting motor launches to some routine destination. The disguise holds. Throughout the day, sailors and commandos alternate between boredom and anxiety. Card games start and stop. Men write letters they know might never be sent. Others stare at the horizon, smoking cigarettes down to the filter, lighting new ones from the dying embers of old. Meals are served. Bully beef, hardtack, tea so strong it could dissolve the tin cups. The food is terrible, but no one complains. Many can't eat anyway, stomachs knotted with pre-combat tension. At 17 hours, the 2 French fishing trawlers are intercepted and sunk. Commander Ryder gives the order reluctantly, but necessity overrides compassion. The trawlers' crews are brought aboard British vessels, confused and protesting. They'll be treated well, released after the war. But for now, they're prisoners, insurance against compromised security. The incident sobers everyone. Until that moment, the operation was theoretical, an exercise. Now it's real. Ships have been sunk, men detained, the point of no return passed. As evening approaches, tension increases. The signal about German torpedo boats in the area circulates through the flotilla. Sailors scan the horizon nervously, searching for silhouettes that might be enemy vessels. The motor launch's wooden hulls offer zero protection against German guns. A single torpedo boat could destroy half the flotilla in minutes, but the horizon remains empty. At 21 hours, the convoy reaches the release point. HMS Atherstone and HMS Tyndale drop back, establishing patrol positions. They'll wait here, engines idling, ready to provide covering fire when, if, the raiders return. The parting is somber. Sailors on the Hunt-class destroyers watch the motor launches and Campbeltown continue east, disappearing into gathering darkness. Some wave. Most simply stare, knowing many of those men won't be seen again. The attack flotilla reforms. MGB 314 takes the lead, flanked by the 2 torpedo-arm motor launches. Campbeltown follows, her false German profile barely visible. The remaining launches form columns to port and starboard. MTB 74, still struggling with mechanical issues, brings up the rear. At 22 hours, HMS Sturgeon begins transmitting her beacon. The submarine sits on the surface, absolutely dark, waves lapping against her hull. Inside, radio operators monitor the signal strength, ensuring the raiders can home in on their position. On Campbeltown, Beatty receives the bearing. They adjust course, turning slightly to port. The Loire estuary lies directly ahead, 50 nautical miles distant. Tirpitz goes below. The forward compartment is cold, lit by that single swinging bulb. The concrete housing looks innocuous, just another structural element. But inside, 4.5 tons of explosives wait. He opens the access panel. The 3 pencil fuses are visible, metal cylinders, each about the size of a cigar. He reaches in carefully, grasps the first fuse, twists the safety cap. A soft click. The glass vial inside breaks. Acid begins dripping onto the wire. He repeats the process with the second fuse, then the third. The countdown has begun. Tirpitz checks his watch. 22:15 hours. In 8 hours, 06:15 on March 28th, those 4.5 tons of depth charges will detonate. He closes the access panel, secures it, climbs back to deck. His hands are steady, his expression calm. If he feels fear, no one can see it. At 23:30, the RAF bombers appear overhead, right on schedule. The drone of their engines carries across the water. On Campbeltown's deck, commandos look up, watching navigation lights blink against the cloud cover. 35 Whitleys and 27 Wellingtons, 62 aircraft, each carrying bombs intended to rain hell on St. Nazaire. The sound is comforting, a reminder they're not alone. But on the ground, the raid unfolds badly. Cloud cover obscures targets. Churchill's strict orders prevent indiscriminate bombing. Only 4 aircraft drop ordnance on St. Nazaire itself. Another 6 hit secondary targets. The diversionary raid, crucial to drawing German attention skyward, largely fails. Worse, the unusual bombing pattern, single bombs dropped at intervals, aircraft circling repeatedly, alerts the German commander. Captain Mecca recognizes something is wrong. At midnight, he orders searchlights extinguished, guns silent, all defensive positions on maximum alert. The British flotilla is racing toward a fully awakened enemy. At 0030 hours, March 28th, Campbeltown crosses into the Loire estuary. The water changes color, river brown mixing with ocean gray. The destroyer's keel scrapes sand once, a grinding shudder that runs through the entire hull. Beatty doesn't reduce speed. They push forward, momentum carrying them over the obstruction. To port and starboard, the motor launches follow in formation. Their shallow draft provides advantage here. They glide over banks that would ground larger vessels. But their wooden hulls, those exposed fuel tanks, the 257 commandos packed aboard, all are terrifyingly vulnerable. 8 minutes from target. The estuary narrows. German fortifications are invisible in darkness, but everyone knows they're there. Shore batteries. Searchlight positions, machine gun nests. 5,000 German troops garrison St. Nazaire, backed by 28 coastal artillery pieces and 43 anti-aircraft guns. The raiders are outnumbered 20-1. At 0120, a signal lamp blinks from shore. German code, demanding identification. On MGB 314, Commander Ryder's signalman responds with captured codes from the Vogsoy raid. German destroyer returning from sea, escorting damaged vessels, request permission to proceed to harbor. The searchlights hold position waiting. 2 minutes of silence, 2 minutes that feel like hours. Then at 0122, every searchlight on the Loire blazes to life simultaneously. The darkness vanishes. The entire flotilla is illuminated, every vessel, every man exposed and visible. There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. They're 8 minutes from the dock gates, fully lit, trapped in a narrow estuary with sandbanks on either side. Shore batteries open fire. The deception 0122 hours. March 28th, 1942, Loire estuary. The first shell screams overhead, the sound like tearing fabric amplified 1,000 times. It impacts 50 yards to starboard, throwing up a geyser of water that crashes back down across ML-192's deck, drenching the commandos crouched behind her gunnels. Then the sky fills with fire. Tracer rounds arc from shore positions in streams of red and green, beautiful and deadly. 20mm rounds from the 280th Naval Artillery Battalion rake across the water, searching for targets. 40mm shells explode in air bursts above the flotilla, shrapnel raining down like steel hail. On Campbeltown's bridge, Beatty grips the railing, his face illuminated by searchlight glare. The German ensign still flies from the mast, that thin deception, the only thing between survival and annihilation. "Hold fire," he orders. "All guns hold fire." The crew stares at him, disbelieving. German shells are falling around them, getting closer with each salvo, and he's ordering them not to shoot back. But Beatty understands. The moment they return fire, the deception ends. The Germans will know immediately they're British, and every gun from St. Nazaire to the estuary mouth will concentrate fire. Right now there's confusion, hesitation. The German gunners can see vessels, but aren't certain of identity. Every second of doubt is another second of survival. The signalman continues flashing messages in German code, protesting the shore fire, demanding immediate ceasefire, citing torpedo damage and casualties. The lies buy precious minutes. The flotilla continues upriver at 19 knots, 6 minutes from target. On deck, Private Ashcroft presses himself flat against the armoured plating as shells scream overhead. Around him, other commandos crouch low, weapons clutched to chests. Someone is praying aloud, words lost in the roar of explosions. Another man vomits from fear, then wipes his mouth and checks his rifle with shaking hands. The helmsman on Campbeltown jerks backward, struck in the chest by a 20mm round. He collapses across the wheel, blood spreading across the deck. A rating drags the body aside, takes position at the wheel without hesitation. 30 seconds later, he too falls, wounded in the shoulder. A third man steps up immediately. The German fire intensifies. The gunners have found their range. ML-192, to starboard, erupts in flames as her exposed fuel tank ignites. The fire spreads with horrifying speed, engulfing the entire boat in seconds. Commandos leap into the Loire, their uniforms burning. Most don't surface. The few who do are swept away by the current or cut down by machine gun fire from shore, 5 minutes from target. Ahead in the darkness, the German guard ship Speerbrecher looms into view, her guns blazing. She's positioned to defend the harbour entrance, and she's firing directly at the British flotilla. Every British vessel turns their weapons on her simultaneously. Oerlikon cannons, Lewis guns, the 12-pounder on Campbeltown's bow, everything concentrates on the guard ship. The volume of fire is overwhelming. Shells tear through Speerbrecher's superstructure, silencing her guns one by one. She begins to drift, disabled, out of the fight. But the cost is revelation. The moment British guns opened fire, the deception ended. "Lower the German ensign," Beatty orders, his voice steady as stone. "Raise the white ensign." The white ensign, the Royal Navy's battle flag, unfurls in the searchlight glare. A declaration of identity and intent. There's no more pretending, no more deception. They're British. They're here to destroy the dock, and nothing will stop them. The German response is immediate and furious. Every gun battery within range opens fire simultaneously. The volume of incoming fire triples, quadruples. Shells explode in the water around Campbeltown, geysers erupting in rapid succession. Tracer fire crosses the deck in intersecting streams, killing men where they crouch. A commando near the bow takes a 20mm round to the face, his head simply ceasing to exist above the jawline. His body remains upright for a moment before toppling sideways. Another man, struck in the stomach by shrapnel, screams and tries to hold his intestines inside with both hands. ML-262 is taking concentrated fire, her mahogany hull splintering like kindling. She doesn't explode, she simply disintegrates, breaking apart under the barrage. Commandos and sailors spill into the water, thrashing, drowning, dying. 4 minutes from target. Lieutenant Colonel Newman, watching from MGB 314, sees his carefully planned operation unraveling. Half the motor launches are already damaged or sinking. The river is filling with debris and bodies. The old mole, the planned evacuation point, is illuminated by searchlights and raked by machine gun fire from multiple positions. There will be no organized evacuation. Newman knows it with absolute certainty. The commandos going ashore will have to fight their way out overland or not at all, but the mission is still viable. Campbeltown is undamaged, still driving forward at full speed. The explosive charge in her bow is armed and counting down. If Beatty can ram the dock gates, the primary objective succeeds regardless of casualties. On Campbeltown's bridge, Beatty can see the target now through the smoke and searchlight glare. The Normandie dry dock gates, rising 160 feet into the night, massive beyond comprehension. Built in 1932 to service the ocean liner SS Normandie, the largest moving structure ever built, the gate is designed to withstand Atlantic storms. Beatty is about to test whether it can withstand a 1,090-ton destroyer traveling at 20 knots, 3 minutes from target. Anti-torpedo netting stretches across the dock entrance, steel cables strung between pylons. Beatty increases speed. "All ahead full," he commands. Campbeltown surges forward, her bow rising slightly as the propellers bite deeper. 20 knots, 21. The netting rushes closer. Impact is inevitable. Campbeltown's reinforced bow strikes the cables with enormous force. The steel netting resists for a moment, cables singing with tension. Then they snap, whipping back with sounds like gunshots. The destroyer tears through, barely slowing. 2 minutes. On deck, Captain Roy and his assault team brace for impact. They're positioned at the bow, first off when the ship rams. Roy checks his Thompson submachine gun one final time. Around him, 13 men in kilts grip their weapons, faces set with grim determination. Sergeant Randall, beside Roy, mutters something that might be a prayer or a curse. In 2 minutes, they'll either be dead or fighting for their lives atop a German-occupied pump house. 1 minute. The dock gates fill the entire view now, impossibly large, solid concrete and steel. The Normandie basin stretches beyond, 1,148 feet long, 164 feet wide, 49 feet deep, the only facility on the Atlantic coast capable of servicing Tirpitz. Beatty grips the railing. "Brace for impact," he shouts. 30 seconds. Tirpitz, standing amidships, thinks about the explosives in the bow. In approximately 8 hours, they'll detonate. If everything goes according to plan, he'll be in British waters by then, watching the column of smoke rise from St. Nazaire across 400 miles of ocean. If not, he'll be dead or captured. Either way, the charge will explode. 15 seconds, 10. The dock gate rushes forward, filling the universe. 5. Ramming speed 01.34 hours. March 28, 1942, impact. HMS Campbeltown strikes the Normandie dock gate caisson at 20 knots, 1,090 tons of steel and explosives meeting immovable concrete. The collision is cataclysmic. The destroyer's bow crumples, crushing back 36 feet, the sound like 1,000 car crashes compressed into a single moment. The ship shudders, every rivet screaming. Men on deck are thrown forward, some over the railings into the dock basin. The mainmast whips backward, snapping shrouds nearly collapsing. Campbeltown rides up onto the caisson, her momentum driving the bow 33 feet onto the concrete structure. The ship settles, lodged firmly atop the gate, exactly where she needs to be. In the crushed bow, behind twisted steel and shattered plating, 4.5 tons of depth charges rest undisturbed, fuses counting down. Captain Roy is first off the ship. He and his assault team vault over the bow railing before Campbeltown fully settles, landing on the caisson 10 feet below. The dock area is illuminated like day by searchlights. German machine guns open fire immediately from positions atop the pump house roof. Roy doesn't hesitate. He sprints forward, Thompson's submachine gun blazing, his kilted assault team following. They reach the pump house wall, press flat against it. Above them, German gunners rake the dock area, trying to get an angle on the raiders below. Sergeant Randall produces grappling hooks, throws one upward. It catches on the roof edge. He climbs hand over hand, Roy right behind him. The Germans above don't see them until it's too late. Roy reaches the roof, pulls himself up, and opens fire point blank into the nearest gun crew. Germans fall, screaming. Randall is beside him now, throwing grenades into the second gun position. The explosions silence the weapons. The pump house roof is secured in under 3 minutes. Behind them, Campbeltown disgorges commandos. Major Copland's Group 3, 75 men, pour off the ship in disciplined waves, fanning out across the dock area. Demolition teams carry their 90-pound rucksacks of explosives. Protection teams provide covering fire with Bren guns and Thompsons. German defenders are recovering from shock. Rifle fire cracks from buildings surrounding the basin. Commandos return fire, advancing toward their objectives. The dock area dissolves into chaos. Smoke, gunfire, grenades exploding, men shouting in English and German. Lieutenant Stuart Chant leads his demolition team toward the northern pump house. They trained for weeks on an identical structure in Southampton, learning every room, every floor, every piece of machinery. Even in darkness, even under fire, they navigate by memory. They reach the entrance. The door is locked. Chant's protection team blows it open with a shaped charge. The team rushes inside, flashlights cutting through darkness. The pump house interior is exactly as the blueprint showed. 3 floors, massive machinery filling every level, electric motors, pumps, valves, control systems. Chant's team splits up, each man moving to pre-assigned targets. They work with methodical precision, placing charges on critical machinery. 808 plastic explosive, molded around pump housings, attached to valve assemblies. Fuses set for 90 seconds. No time for longer delays. German counterattacks are already forming outside. Shrapnel tears through the pump house wall. Chant feels impacts in his knee, his arm, both hands. Blood streams down his fingers. He ignores it, continues placing charges. His team does the same. Every man knows. Mission first, survival second. Outside, Captain Roy's team has secured the bridge leading out of the dock area. It's the only route to the Old Mole, where motor launches should be waiting for evacuation. Roy positions his men in defensive positions, Bren guns covering the approaches. German counterattacks begin almost immediately. Wehrmacht infantry from the submarine base garrison advance toward the dock, firing as they come. Roy's Brens open up, sweeping the approaches. Germans fall, but more keep coming. On the river, the situation for the motor launches is catastrophic. ML-192, already burning, has sunk. ML-262 is breaking apart under concentrated fire. ML-267 takes a direct hit from a shore battery, her fuel tank exploding, incinerating everyone aboard instantly. Commander Ryder on MGB-314 tries to coordinate the chaos. The plan called for launches to proceed to designated landing points, disembark commandos, then withdraw to wait offshore. But German fire is so intense that most launches can't even reach the landing zones. ML-457, carrying Captain Hodgson's Group 1, attempts to reach the Old Mole. Shore batteries bracket her with fire. Shells explode in the water on either side. The launch pushes forward through the barrage, somehow avoiding direct hits. She reaches the Old Mole. Commandos pour off, rushing up the stone jetty. German machine gun positions open fire from both flanks. The commandos go to ground, returning fire, trying to advance. It's impossible. They're pinned down, taking casualties, unable to reach their objectives. ML-306, with Sergeant Thomas Durrant manning the aft Lewis gun, is attempting to withdraw downriver when a German torpedo boat, Jaguar, intercepts her. The German vessel, faster and more heavily armed, closes to point-blank range. Durrant opens fire, his Lewis gun chattering, tracer rounds striking the torpedo boat's bridge. The Germans return fire with everything, 20mm cannons, machine guns. Rounds tear through ML-306's wooden hull. Durrant is hit in the arm. He keeps firing. Hit in the chest, still firing. Hit multiple times, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. His gun continues firing. The motor launch is riddled, sinking. Commandos aboard killed or wounded. Germans board from the torpedo boat. Durrant, dying, swings his Lewis gun toward them. A German officer knocks the weapon aside, preventing his own men from killing Durrant. "You are a brave soldier," the German says in English. Durrant collapses. He dies minutes later. The German commander, Kapitänleutnant F.K. Paul, will later recommend Durrant for the Victoria Cross, an enemy officer honoring enemy valor. Back at the Normandie dock, Chant's demolition team completes their work. Every critical piece of machinery in the northern pump house is wired with explosives. They light the 90-second fuses, then run. They're halfway across the dock when the pump house explodes. The blast is enormous, shattering windows throughout the port area. The structure collapses inward, flames erupting from every opening. When the smoke clears, the northern pump house is rubble. Chant's team, despite wounds, moves to their secondary objectives. They find the underground fuel storage tanks exactly where intelligence indicated, set charges, detonate them. Columns of flame shoot into the sky as thousands of gallons of diesel ignite. Similar scenes unfold across the dock area. Demolition teams, working under fire, destroy winding machinery, lock gates, bridges. Captain Bill Pritchard's pre-war dockyard experience proves invaluable. Every target he identified is obliterated, but the evacuation is failing. The Old Mole, the planned pickup point, is under such intense fire that no motor launch can approach. The few launches that successfully landed commandos are now sinking or burning. German infantry is pushing into the dock area from multiple directions, outnumbering the raiders 10-1. On Campbeltown, Lieutenant Commander Beatty and Lieutenant Tirpitz oversee the ship's evacuation. The crew open seacocks, flooding the engine rooms. If the Germans attempt to tow her away before detonation, she'll sink, blocking the channel. Beatty is last off his ship, as tradition demands. He jumps from the bow onto the caisson, looking back at Campbeltown for a final time. She's wedged firmly on the dock gate, bow crushed but intact, exactly where she needs to be. In approximately 7 hours, she'll cease to exist. Section 9. Chaos and Demolition. 02 hours. March 28, 1942. St. Nazaire. The dock area is hell incarnate. Smoke, flames, explosions, tracer fire, cutting through darkness like laser beams. German defenders pour in from every direction. Wehrmacht infantry from the submarine base, Kriegsmarine sailors from ships in harbour, flak brigade gunners abandoning anti-aircraft positions to engage ground targets. Lieutenant Colonel Newman establishes a command post near the old entrance, coordinating what remains of his force. The radio is useless. German jamming has killed all communication with surviving motor launches. Runners carry messages between units, sprinting through fire-swept areas, many falling before delivering their reports. Newman's tactical situation is clear. They're trapped. The motor launches that were supposed to evacuate them are sinking, burning, or already withdrawn. The Old Mole is untenable. German reinforcements are arriving by the minute. His commandos are outnumbered, outgunned, running low on ammunition. But the demolitions are succeeding beyond expectations. Captain Roy's team, having secured the pumphouse roof and bridge, pushes deeper into the dock complex. They destroy the winding mechanism controlling the inner dock gates, massive machinery reduced to twisted scrap. They demolish the crane control station. They plant charges on the lock gates leading to the submarine pens. Every explosion sends shockwaves across the harbour. Captain Michael Burns' Group 2, which managed to land near the old entrance despite catastrophic losses, fights through German positions toward the power station. The plan called for them to demolish bridges, destroy the lock system, knock out power to the entire port. They reach the first bridge under withering fire. Burns' demolition specialist, Corporal Arthur Young, plants charges while protection teams hold off German counterattacks. The bridge explodes, dropping into the canal, severing a major route into the old town. But ammunition is running out. Thompsons that held 30 rounds now click empty. Bren gun magazines show their last few cartridges. Commandos scavenge ammunition from wounded and dead, German and British alike. Able seaman William Savage, manning the 2-pounder gun aboard MGB 314, continues firing despite concentrated German attention. His gun position is completely exposed, no armor, no protection. Shore batteries have identified the MGB as a headquarters vessel and direct focused fire. Shell splashes bracket the boat. Savage traverses his gun, fires, reloads, fires again. A 40mm round explodes near the gun mount, shrapnel tearing into his legs. He stays at his weapon. Commander Ryder on the MGB's bridge is trying to organize what remains of the flotilla for evacuation runs. It's nearly impossible. Of 18 motor launches that entered the Loire, fewer than half remain operational. Most are damaged, burning, or sinking. The river is choked with wreckage and bodies. ML-160, attempting a rescue run to the Old Mole, is hit repeatedly. Her commander, Sub-Lieutenant Nock, is killed instantly. The coxswain takes command, continues toward shore. Commandos wade into the water, swimming toward the launch. Some make it aboard, most don't. ML-270, her fuel tank riddled but not exploding, limps downstream with 30 commandos packed aboard, twice her designed capacity. German guns track her progress, rounds splashing all around. She makes it past the harbour mouth into open water. Behind her, St. Nazaire burns. At the Normandie dock, Major Copland realizes evacuation by sea is impossible. He reports to Newman. All demolition objectives achieved, but no way out via the river. Newman makes his decision. They'll fight their way out overland. Break through German positions, reach the countryside, head south for Spain, 400 miles away, but offering hope of eventual return to Britain. It's desperate, but it's better than surrender. Newman divides his remaining commandos, perhaps 150 men still combat effective, into small groups. Each group will attempt independent escape through St. Nazaire's streets, avoiding German patrols, reaching the countryside before dawn. At 02:30, they begin withdrawing from the dock area. Captain Roy's team fights through the old town, engaging German patrols in brutal close-quarters combat. Room-to-room fighting, grenades through windows, Thompson fire at point-blank range. They make progress measured in yards, leaving German and British dead in their wake. Captain Burns' group encounters a Wehrmacht roadblock, sandbags, machine guns, perhaps 20 defenders. There's no time for subtlety. They charge, firing everything they have. The Germans return fire. Men fall on both sides. Burns' group breaks through, keeps moving. Lieutenant Stuart Chant, wounded 3 times but still mobile, leads his demolition team toward the town's edge. They move through back alleys, avoiding main streets. Behind them, explosions continue as delayed charges detonate across the dock complex. But the German net is tightening. Captain José Mecker has mobilized every available unit. Wehrmacht infantry companies establish cordons. Kriegsmarine security patrols sweep the streets. Checkpoints spring up on every road leading out of St. Nazaire. The commandos are being hunted systematically. Newman's group, about 40 men, fights to within a mile of the town's edge before they're surrounded. German infantry closes in from 3 sides, rifles and machine guns firing. The commandos take cover in a drainage ditch, return fire. But they're almost out of ammunition. Major Copland suggests fighting their way out. Newman considers it, looking at his men, exhausted, wounded, down to their last magazines. More will die. For what? The mission is complete. The dock is destroyed. Campbeltown's explosive will finish the job in hours. Fix bayonets, Newman orders. We're going to surrender. Copland initially protests. Certainly not, Colonel. But Newman is firm. No more men will die needlessly. They raise a white flag. German troops approach cautiously, weapons ready. The commandos lay down their arms, hands raised. Wehrmacht soldiers search them roughly, looking for weapons, documents, anything useful. Newman and his men are marched away, prisoners of war. Other groups continue fighting. Captain Roy, refusing surrender, battles through the German cordon with a handful of men. They reach the countryside as dawn breaks, hiding in woods south of St. Nazaire. For 3 days they evade German patrols, moving south. On the 4th day, starving and exhausted, they're captured near La Baule. Captain Burns' group makes it 20 miles south before Wehrmacht units track them down. They fight a final engagement, outnumbered and surrounded. When their ammunition runs out, they surrender. Of 611 men who entered St. Nazaire harbour, only 5 will escape France entirely, reaching Spain after weeks of evasion and aided by French resistance. Another 227 return to Britain aboard surviving motor launches. The remaining 379 are killed or captured, but in the Loire estuary, wedged atop the Normandie dock gates, HMS Campbeltown waits patiently. Her fuses continue counting down. The retreat that never was, 03:30 hours, March 28, 1942, Loire estuary. Commander Robert Ryder stands on MGB 314's bullet-riddled bridge, surveying catastrophe. The river around him is a graveyard. Burning motor launches drift downstream, flames reflecting off the water. Bodies float among the wreckage, commandos, sailors, Germans, the dead making no distinction of nationality. Of 18 motor launches that entered the Loire, perhaps 8 remain marginally operational. Most are damaged, hulls riddled, crews wounded or killed. The evacuation has failed utterly, but some commandos made it aboard surviving launches. Ryder can see them, 30 men packed aboard ML-270, 20 more on ML-160, others distributed among vessels barely staying afloat. Not many. Perhaps 60 commandos total out of 257 who went ashore. The rest are dead or fighting through St. Nazaire's streets. Ryder makes his decision. The surviving launches will withdraw immediately, while darkness still offers some protection. Dawn is 2 hours away. In daylight, German coastal batteries and Luftwaffe aircraft will annihilate anything still in French waters. He signals the flotilla. Withdraw to open sea. The motor launches turn downstream, engines straining, heading for the estuary mouth at maximum speed. German shore batteries track them, shells falling among the fleeing vessels. ML-160 takes a direct hit, her stern exploding. She doesn't sink immediately. Testament to her crew's damage control, but she's doomed. Her surviving commandos transfer to other launches. ML-160 is abandoned, sinking slowly as the flotilla races past. MTB-74, the temperamental torpedo boat that struggled mechanically throughout the operation, finally proves her worth. Despite battle damage, her powerful engines drive her past the fleeing motor launches. She'll reach HMS Atherstone first, reporting the raid's outcome. Able seaman William Savage remains at his 2-pounder gun aboard MGB-314, firing at shore positions despite multiple wounds. Blood pools at his feet. His hands shake with each shot, but the gun keeps firing. A German shell explodes directly beside the gun mount. Shrapnel tears through Savage's body. He collapses over his weapon, dead. Commander Ryder removes his own cap in salute. That gun position, exposed and defenseless, drew concentrated fire throughout the withdrawal, allowing other vessels to escape. Savage stayed at his post, firing until the end. He'll receive the Victoria Cross posthumously. MGB-314 clears the estuary mouth at 04:15, entering open ocean. Behind them, St. Nazaire still burns, columns of smoke rising into the pre-dawn sky. Explosions continue sporadically as delayed charges detonate. The surviving launches form up around the MGB. Ryder conducts a quick count: MGB-314, MTB-74, and 4 motor launches: ML-270, ML-156, ML-443, ML-307. 6 vessels out of 20 that entered. HMS Atherstone and HMS Tyndale appear on the horizon at 050, racing to meet the raiders. The Hunt-class destroyers form a protective screen, anti-aircraft guns manned, watching for Luftwaffe attacks. None come. The German Air Force is apparently unaware of the night's events. The flotilla turns west, heading for home, 400 miles to England. Perhaps 12 hours at current speed, the exhausted survivors collapse where they stand, too tired for celebration or mourning. Aboard ML-270, 30 commandos are packed into a boat designed for 14. Some are wounded, field dressings soaked with blood. Others stare at nothing, faces blank with shock. A few sleep, heads resting on weapons. Private Arthur Ashcroft, miraculously unwounded, sits in the stern, watching St. Nazaire recede. He thinks about the men who didn't make it, friends from training, faces he'll never see again. The operation was successful, he knows that, but success tastes like ashes. On MGB-314, Commander Ryder drafts his initial report. The facts are brutal. Massive casualties, most commandos captured or killed, most launches sunk, but the primary objective was achieved. HMS Campbeltown is lodged firmly on the dock gates, her explosive charge armed and counting down. If that charge detonates as planned, the raid succeeds regardless of cost. If, at 6 hours, dawn breaks over the Atlantic, The sea is grey and calm. The flotilla continues west, 6 vessels limping home. Behind them, 400 miles away, St. Nazaire awakens to devastation. The explosion and legacy 10:30 hours. March 28, 1942. St. Nazaire, France. The Normandie dock area swarms with German personnel, Wehrmacht infantry securing perimeters, Kriegsmarine officers surveying damage, taut organization engineers assessing repairs. The morning light reveals the extent of British destruction. Pump houses collapsed into rubble, winding machinery demolished, bridges blown, fuel tanks burning. But HMS Campbeltown, wedged atop the dock gates, appears intact. Her bow is crushed from ramming, her superstructure bullet-riddled, but she's not sinking. The Germans opened her seacocks, but pumps are keeping ahead of the flooding. German engineers discuss salvage options. Perhaps she can be towed off the gates, repaired, commissioned into the Kriegsmarine, or scrapped for steel. Either way, she must be removed so repairs to the dock can begin. Approximately 350 German soldiers, sailors and workers are on or near Campbeltown. They move across her deck, examining machinery, cataloguing damage. Some pose for photographs, souvenirs of capturing a British destroyer. Deep in the crushed bow, behind steel and concrete, 4.5 tons of Mark 7 depth charges continue their countdown. At 10:35, the pencil fuses complete their work. Acid has corroded through the restraining wires. Strikers release simultaneously. The explosion is cataclysmic. 4.5 tons of high explosive detonates in microseconds, releasing energy equivalent to multiple battleship shells fired simultaneously. Campbeltown's entire bow section vaporizes. The blast wave radiates outward at supersonic speed, a wall of overpressure that liquefies everything in its path. The 350 Germans on and near the destroyer are killed instantly, bodies torn apart, incinerated, simply ceasing to exist. The dock gate caisson, already damaged by ramming, is obliterated. Concrete and steel fragments become supersonic projectiles, cutting down Germans 200 yards away. The blast wave continues, shattering windows throughout St. Nazaire, knocking people off their feet a kilometre distant. The sound is heard in Britain, across the Channel, a distant rumble like thunder signalling success. When the smoke clears, the Normandie dock gates no longer exist. The caisson is rubble. The dock basin is filling with Loire River water, uncontrolled flooding that will take weeks to stop. The pump houses, already demolished by commandos, cannot control the inundation. The largest dry dock on the Atlantic coast, the only facility capable of servicing Tirpitz, is destroyed. The German response is panic and fury. Captain Zurse Mecca, believing a time-delayed commando attack is in progress, orders all prisoners shot. Wehrmacht soldiers march British prisoners toward execution walls. At the last moment, cooler heads prevail. Senior officers countermand the execution orders. The British prisoners, including Lieutenant Colonel Newman, Major Copland, Captains Roy and Byrne, hundreds of commandos, are spared. They'll spend the rest of the war in prisoner-of-war camps, but they'll survive. Lieutenant Commander Stephen Beatty, captured shortly after evacuating Campbeltown, learns of the explosion while in German custody. He allows himself a small smile. His ship fulfilled her final mission perfectly. Lieutenant Nigel Tirpitz, also captured, feels vindicated. The fuses worked exactly as calculated, 8 hours after activation, to the minute. His calculations were correct. But the raid's impact extends beyond destruction. Tirpitz will never venture into the Atlantic. Without St. Nazaire's dry dock for emergency repairs, German Naval Command cannot risk their greatest battleship in open ocean operations. She'll remain in Norwegian fjords, a fleet in being that ties down British naval resources, but never again threatens Atlantic convoys directly. The strategic calculus has shifted. Britain's maritime supply lines are marginally safer. Convoys to Russia can operate with reduced fear of Tirpitz intervention. The cost was immense. 169 British soldiers and sailors killed, 215 captured. Of 612 men who undertook the raid, only 228 returned to Britain. 5 Victoria Crosses awarded to Commander Robert Ryder, Lieutenant Colonel Augustus Newman, Lieutenant Commander Stephen Beatty, Sergeant Thomas Durrant, and able seaman William Savage. 84 additional decorations recognizing extraordinary valor. German casualties exceeded 360 dead, most killed when Campbeltown exploded. The psychological impact on German defenders was profound. Realization that British commandos could strike deep into occupied France, destroy critical infrastructure, and escape. The Normandie dock remained unusable until 1948, 3 years after the war ended. When American forces liberated St. Nazaire in 1945, they found the basin still flooded, the gates still destroyed, exactly as Operation Chariot left them. In Britain, the raid becomes legend. The greatest raid of all, a title bestowed by military historians and embraced by the commandos themselves. It demonstrated that audacity, planning, and courage could achieve objectives deemed impossible. For the French civilians of St. Nazaire living under German occupation, the raid provided the first tangible proof that liberation might come. British soldiers had reached into occupied France, struck a devastating blow, and escaped. If they could do that, perhaps the Allies could eventually return in force. After the war, memorials were erected. In Falmouth, England, where the flotilla departed, a monument honors the raiders. In St. Nazaire itself, a commando stele stands in the Petit Maroc district, near where the old jetty once stood. An English cemetery contains the graves of those who fell. The survivors, those who returned to Britain, and those who spent years in German POW camps, rarely spoke of March 28, 1942. When they did, it was with quiet pride, never boastfulness. They'd done what was asked. The dock was destroyed. Tirpitz was caged. The mission succeeded. That was enough. Decades later, Bob Montgomery, who commanded demolition teams during the raid, reflected on Operation Chariot's legacy. Because it was a crazy idea, it was likely to succeed. It's something we British do. It may not seem part of our character, but it is up our sleeve. The greatest raid of all.